So here's a short instruction on how to write a reasoning essay now when you're supposed to write your health and environment essays. I won't go through it all, but I will go through the structure and the instructions for the content of the essay. But as always, when you write an essay, you should think about your sources, and you should always maintain a critical attitude towards all sources you use. So think about who has written the source, who it was written for, why it was written, and so on. And this time, or in this case, you have already been given sources, so if you don't want to use other sources except from the ones I have given you, you don't have to. So let's see if we can move on to the... this one is important for you to know, and it is how you write a source in your list of references that you should have at the bottom of your text. So at the end of the text, always write a list of references and then write your source as is said by this instruction. So if you have a book, you should start with an author and then comma, title, comma, year of publication, comma, where it was published. So depending on what you're doing, use these instructions, and in your mind map, write down the exact way of stating your sources in the list of references, so you don't have to look it up again on Wednesday. When you write a reasoning text, the purpose is to present a topic from different points of view and discuss different aspects of the topic, in contrast to when writing an argumentative text where you're supposed to argue for your standpoint and where you are supposed to choose a standpoint. This time you won't do that. You can't think that one way or the other is better, but you're going to present different points of view and try to highlight different aspects of the topic you're writing about. Your register, the language it means, should be semi-formal to formal, depending on which grade you aim for. So a formal language with formal linking words, preferably. The structure, I would like you to use a standard 5-paragraph structure. That means that you should have an introduction, 3 bodies in between, where each paragraph in the body presents a new topic or a new perspective, a new point of view, a new aspect, and then a conclusion where you sum everything up. I will come back to this later on. The title is supposed to excite interest and give information about the subject matter, like for instance, what is the point in reading literature? So it could be a question, because if we would have written argumentative text, we would have written reading literature is important, question mark, or not question mark, but exclamation mark. But this time you can have a question, since it is a reasoning text and a discursive text. Quote experts if you like to, but make sure that you use quotation marks so we know that it isn't your own words, and talk about what people have said, but always state your source. The content. In the introduction, I want you to introduce the topic and end it with a neutral thesis statement without taking sides. It should be clear in the end of your introduction what your essay will be about. Is it about literature? Is that in this essay I'm going to give you different reasons to why literature is good for your health, or why we should continue reading literature even though we have computers, or whatever it could be. But it should be, so first write some background information about the topic, about literature in general in this case, and then in the end with a thesis statement. What will your essay be about? I avoid using I am going to write about, right? This essay will be about, or what is the difference between, or and so on. How can our our consumption of meat destroy the planet? That could also be a thesis statement at the end. The body paragraphs, here I want you to have 3 different paragraphs with 3 different aspects of the topic. Begin with a topic sentence, so I know what you are going to write about in each paragraph, and so that is because each paragraph should take up a new aspect. So when you have written what the source says, like for instance, according to Mr. Da 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 in the Plastic Ocean, and then the facts, you can also you end with the parenthesis with the name and the year, and then you are also supposed to reason and give us your own opinions on the topic and try to draw a conclusion on what you think about this, without using I think, or just discuss what you have written and try to make it into a deep discussion about a problem, the environmental problem you're discussing. So 3 paragraphs, each paragraph a new aspect. Each paragraph should contain of both sources and your own conclusions about what the sources say. The last thing, or the last paragraph, should be your conclusion, and here you're supposed to summarize the main points of the essay by summing up all the main findings. So perhaps you should take out the main points of each and one of the paragraphs you have written about in the body. So 3 paragraphs, 3 important points that summarize your essay. Always start with a linking word, like in conclusion, for instance. You have these linking words later on in this presentation, so you can look at them and try to memorize some of them or use them in your mind map. Here you have 2 options, or when you want to enlighten or summarize what you have written, you can start by writing about one opinion in the following way, like: to conclude, literature fulfills an important function in our lives. It stimulates imagination, empathy, and understanding. And then when you want to introduce another opinion, it looks nicer if you use a linking word. For instance, saying, however, like everything else, or nevertheless, like everything else, literature may not have the same appeal to everybody. So you should, and here we're lifting 2 different aspects, but even if it doesn't have appeal to anybody, what can we do to make it interesting? So we are enlightening the reader. We are giving them a summary of what we have written in our essay. Here are the linking words I talked about, so use them. The first ones, I have tried to organize them into categories. So the first ones you can use in order to organize the order of your arguments, like firstly, secondly, thirdly, and so on. The second category is developing your arguments. So how can we do that? To give further information and to add something. We have worked with this before. And the last one is for introducing contrast and opposition. So if we have given the reader one opinion, how can we put this in contrast to something else? And using on the other hand forever, or on the contrary. And since this isn't an argumentative essay, you should give us different opinions without taking a stand. The structure of your essay should be, it's always important that it's well structured with clear paragraphs. Here is an example of an essay with very clear paragraphs. We have the introduction, we have 2 paragraphs for the body and one in the end. In the text, you can see that we have used the parenthesis method. It says The Guardian, March 16, 2010. It should say the last name of the author, if there is one. And at the end, you have the list of references. You should do this as well. It shouldn't be that thorough as at the university, but I want you to have the list of references there so I can look them up. In this method, I have used a space line, so I have pressed enter after one paragraph and then left a space line, so enter 2 times in order to get this structure. If you want to, you can use the tab button as well. You have a button or at the upper left corner on your keyboards that says tab, and then you just press enter once, and the next paragraph will be tabbed in if you press tab and start a bit in the first one. So look at that one as well. If you want to, you can use this. It's also correct. What you shouldn't do is use this kind of structure where you just press enter too many times, because this makes the paragraphs very unclear and you don't know where one paragraph starts and where the other begins. So this is a messy structure. If you do this, you will get a comment that you have a messy structure, and for a C you need a structured text, for instance. And this is also wrong, since here we don't have any paragraphs at all. So try to think about this. Clear paragraphs, use linking words to link the paragraphs together, use topic sentences so we know what you're talking about, each paragraph a new aspect, and so on. And don't forget, above all, to reason on your own. I don't want to read text where you only quote the sources and where you only write about what the sources say. I want also your opinions to matter. I want you to tell me what can be done and how it can be done and what you think about the matter, without using I think, but try to reason. What does this actually mean? Try to explain and read between the lines of your sources, and try to give us a deeper understanding of this topic. Oh, and I think that's it. So good luck on writing your essays.